Oh, it's on that one? Okay,
Are we good to start?
yes.
Okay. This meeting of the Community Development Board is called to order on May 21st, 2019. Welcome, everyone. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. This board consists of 7 members and 1 alternate who are appointed by the City Council and serve voluntarily. I am Chris Anaskevich, and I will ask the other members and the staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Mary Lau.
Brian Barker.
Randy Mora.
Gina Clayton, Planning and Development.
Michael Foligno, Assistant City Attorney.
Elizabeth Vanscoy.
Jordan Behar. John Quattrocchi.
Please remember to turn off your cell phones and beepers so that they do not become a distraction during the meeting. Please also refrain from having conversations in this room so that we might hear all of the testimony given today. To ensure a complete record of this board's actions, we ask that each individual wishing to speak, including the applicant, speak into the microphone at the podium in front of us, clearly state your name and spell your last name for the clerk. Now I will ask all those in attendance today who plan to speak to please rise and be sworn in by the clerk.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear for the testimony you're about to give us the entire truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Agendas of today's meeting are on the podium to your right near the entry door. Also on this podium are a roster of the Community Development Board, the list of city staff experts and their resumes, the board's rules of procedure, and the annual schedule of this board. First up is the election of the chair and vice chair.
I think the minutes are first.
Minutes are first. Okay, very well. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from last month's meeting. May I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the election of the chair and vice chair. Discussion by the board for the chair.
I would like to nominate the current chair and the current vice chair to serve for the rest of this coming year.
I would recommend we do them one at a time.
Okay, all right, well then I would nominate Chair Boutsakis to continue serving as chair of the board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, and then if we're moving on to the vice chair, I would propose that Chris Anaskevich continue serving as vice chair for the coming year.
Second.
All in favor? Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next up is items not heard on agenda. If you're here to speak on an item that is not on today's agenda, please approach the podium. Seeing no one, we will continue. Next up is a request for continuance of 3 items. The first is a request to continue 2 items to the meeting of June 18, 2019. The first case is case FLD 2019-01-003 at 1006 Eldorado Avenue. The owner is Steve Smaha. The agent is Mike Loomis with Landscape Fusion. The request, the Community Development Board is reviewing a pool and pool deck to be located seaward of the coastal construction control line in the low-medium density residential district for the property located at 1006 Eldorado Avenue. The second case is case FLD 2019-04008 at 1920 Gulf to Bay Boulevard. The owner is G&G Realty. The agent is David Millisor with Oliveri Architects. The request, the Community Development Board is reviewing a proposed redevelopment of a fast food restaurant in the commercial district for the property located at 1920 Gulf to Bay Boulevard. Do we have a motion to continue these items until June 18th, 2019?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next request is to continue an item continue an item to a date of June 25th at 1 p.m. The case is FLD 2019-01002 at 1919 Edgewater Drive, 1026 Sunset Point Road. The owner is Edgewater Valor Capital LLC. The agent is Sandra Lee Bradbury with Northside Engineering, Inc. The request, the Community Development Board is reviewing a proposed 80-unit attached dwelling development in the tourist and medium-density residential districts for the properties located at 1919 Edgewater Drive and 1026 Sunset Point Road. Do we have a motion to continue this item until June 25th at 1 p.m.?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Second.
Who was the second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We will now move on to the consent agenda. This board has adopted a consent agenda format, and the consent items are identified as such on the agenda. Consent agenda items are those items for which the Planning Department recommends approval. The applicant is in agreement with any proposed conditions, and no written objections to the case have been received to date. Items may be removed from the consent agenda today by a member of the board, a member of the staff, or any person in the audience for questions or objections. I will read each item on the consent agenda item, and if any person wishes to remove this item from the consent agenda, please so state or raise your hand, and we will remove it from the consent agenda. Items removed from the consent agenda will be heard in the regular order of the meeting. Items that remain on the consent agenda will be approved with a single vote. First item on the consent agenda is case FLD 2017-06009 at 3009 Gulf to Bay Boulevard. The owner is Giant Oil, Inc. The agent is Ronald Fair with AEC Services, Inc. The request, the reconsideration of a condition of approval associated with a previously approved automotive service station in the US 19 Regional Center Subdistrict, US 19-RC, for the property located at 3009 Gulf to Bay Boulevard. Does anyone wish to have this item removed from the consent agenda? Item number 1 is removed from the consent agenda. The next case is case TA 2019-04001, amendments to the Community Development Code. The applicant is the City of Clearwater. The request, the Community Development Board is reviewing a request to amend Section 5-1102 of the Community Development Code to change the composition of the Public Art and Design Board to include a representative from the Clearwater Arts Alliance, Inc. and Creative Pinellas in making a recommendation to the City Council. Does anyone wish to have this item removed from consent agenda? Okay, that case will stay on the consent agenda. Before asking for a motion, does any board member have a disclosure for any ex parte communication related to a consent agenda item of a level, well, that would be a level 2 application, so that is not relevant. May I have a motion?
Item H1 is a level 2 application.
But we're working on
This is
That's being removed.
the case, we're working on case 2, which is the level 3 application.
Gotcha.
Case number 1 has been removed. May I have a motion for approval of the first item, case FLD 2017-06009?
No, that's a vote. We're going to hear that.
Case number 2.
Oh, my apologies. May I have a motion for approval of case number 2 on today's consent agenda?
recommendation.
A recommendation, correct.
I move to approve item number 2 on today's consent agenda based on evidence of the record, including the application and staff report. Hereby adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law stated in the staff report with conditions of approval as listed.
And to clarify, that's a recommendation of approval. Motion made.
Second.
And seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We will now move forward with our Level 2 case. All Level 2 cases, such as flexible development, are considered quasi-judicial hearings. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the Community Development Board reviews the application, the staff report, correspondence, and all evidence presented today and makes a final decision subject to appeal. This board has previously qualified all of the city staff who will testify as experts in their area of professional training, education, and experience. The list of city staff experts and their resumes are in the handbook on the podium near the entry door. Any other professionals who desire to be qualified as an expert witness shall so request at the beginning of the case and present a resume to each board member. The board shall determine whether or not to qualify the person as an expert and in what field of study. At the beginning of each Level 2 case, I will ask for anyone who wishes to request party status to come forward and state your reasons. Party status may be granted if the person requesting such status demonstrates that he is a substantially affected person. The board will then determine whether or not to grant party status. Then the case will proceed as follows. Presentation by planning staff, 10 minutes, max. Presentation by the applicant, 10 minutes max. Presentation by persons with party status, 5 minutes per party. Cross-examination of witnesses by planning staff. Cross-examination of witnesses by applicant. Cross-examination of witnesses by persons with party status. Comments by the public, 3 minutes per person. Closing remarks by the planning staff, 3 minutes maximum. Closing remarks by persons granted party status, 3 minutes per party. Closing remarks by applicant, 3 minutes max. Closing of the public hearing, discussion, and vote by the board. Our one Level 2 case today is FLD 2017-06009 at 3000 Gulf to Bay Boulevard. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to request party status on this case? Okay, could you come to the podium, please, and state your name and your address?
Jackie Logeman, do you want me to spell it?
Please.
Logemann. And I live at 714 South Bayview Avenue, Clearwater.
Okay, very well. Do we have a motion to grant party status?
Did she receive notice?
Did you receive notice of today's hearing
From a neighbor.
from a neighbor? Okay.
What's the distance?
Yeah, are you, how far are you from this project site?
Well, Bayview Avenue is a short little road, so I'm like almost down towards the bottom, probably about, I don't know, 200 feet, 300 feet, I'm not too sure.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I would move to grant party status to Ms. Loveland.
Second.
okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. You may take a seat now. Thank you. Please come to the podium. We have one more.
He's the applicant.
Oh, you're the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My name is Paul Zach. I work for AEC Services and Ron Fair, the engineer.
Okay, I don't think there's any need to, yeah, I think
You
you're
already
ready.
have
You've
party
already had
status?
party status,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, presentation by planning staff.
Mr. Chair, before the testimony begins, the city would move to have Mr. Nornberg introduced as an expert witness in zoning, site plan analysis, planning in general, landscape ordinances, and the matters on which he's about to testify.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Kevin Nuremberger, Planning Development Department. On November 21st, 2017, the Community Development Board approved a request for an automobile service station in the US 19 Regional Center for the property located at 3009 Gulf to Bay Boulevard. Prior to the approval, the CDB discussed the removal of a permanent roof access ladder on the building's west facade due to the concerns expressed by the neighbors about a negative visual effect of the ladder from Bayview Avenue. And how'd that work?
Not in slide.
Just trying. Thank you. This is just a site plan to remind everybody, Gulf to Bay is at the top part of the site plan, and Bayview Avenue is on to the left side, and it's just showing the facade. The Community Development Board added a condition of approval to remove the permanent roof access ladder from the west facade. The condition stated that the roof access ladder on the west side of the building be removed to be replaced by access hooks for the use of temporary extension ladder when roof access is required, and that the ladder shall be removed from the applicable sheets. However, this condition of approval appears to conflict with the Florida Building Code. This is the FLD application that was reviewed, and that shows the ladder on the left side or the northwest corner of the building through the FLD application. And the bottom part is just showing the south elevation. The property owner submitted for a building construction permit on October 24th, 2018, within the required one-year time frame. The primary building was approved at a height of 22 feet to top of parapet walls, with the mechanical equipment, including the air conditioning units, to be located on the roof, screened by the parapet walls as required by the US 19 District Building Design Standards. This is the west facade on the top, showing the removal of the ladder with the kind of notch if they were going to do the temporary in the same location where the previous ladder was. So this is what they've submitted for the building permit, trying to comply with the development order. The building division in the Planning Development Department cannot approve this permit unless a permanent roof access ladder is installed on the building because the building height is greater than 16 feet. To comply with the Florida Building Code Mechanical 6th Edition 2017, Section 306.5, equipment and appliances on roofs or elevated structures. Any possibility of consolidating the conflicting condition of approval and the Florida Building Code, if feasible, may require substantial redesign of the building, which may turn into a conflict with the building facade requirements of the US 19. The applicant is requesting the condition of approval to be removed or reconsidered to allow for a permanent roof access ladder to resolve the conflict. The property owner's representatives were attempting to obtain the permit within the 6 months of the initial permit application. The expiration date was April 24th, 2019. However, in order to resolve this ladder issue, the applicant requested and the Community Development Coordinator granted a 6-month extension on April 21st, 2014. This reconsideration of the condition of approval is required because it requires the cancellation of a condition of approval which is not permitted as a minor revision. Staff recommends removal of the condition of approval and condition of approval number 8, which states that the roof access ladder on the west side of the building be removed to be replaced by access hooks for the use of the temporary extension ladder when roof access is required. The ladder shall be removed from applicable sheets. Any questions?
Any questions of the board? No, no questions. We will now have the presentation by the applicant.
Good afternoon.
Can you spell your name, please?
My name is Paul, P-A-U-L, Zach, Z-A-K.
Thank you.
So we are just trying to follow the building code and the safety of public safety. We would like to have the permanent ladder in the location we originally had.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. We will now have a presentation by persons with party status. Thank you.
Our neighborhood understands that, Jackie Logeman. Our neighborhood understands that this is probably a ladder that's required at this point. What we did in the beginning was, it's an entrance to our historic neighborhood. And that's what, when we begin going into our neighborhood, you see back of a commercial building now that's going to be quite large and ugly. So we were just trying to get rid of the ladder, put it somewhere else so we can have something that's kind of decent when we come into our neighborhood. If it has to go back there, we're hoping that it could be like painted the same color to blend into the back of the building. Maybe some trees on the back side of the building to kind of, we're just wanting something to make the back of the building look better. So if the ladder has to go, maybe something could be done with some bushes, some tall plants in that area. So when we come into our neighborhood, that we have something that looks like a big commercial building that's ugly. And that's all we were trying to do with the ladder, not trying to block a ladder to go on there, but to make it look better in the back. So we're just hoping that if the ladder goes back, maybe paint it the same color, maybe put a bigger wall up, some plants up.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I would just like to know if she's had an opportunity to discuss this with the applicant.
For the record, she did say no. Okay,
I would like to.
thank you. Cross-examination of witnesses by planning staff? None. Cross-examination of witnesses by applicant? Cross-examination of witnesses by persons with party status? We will now have comments by the public, if there are any. Closing remarks by the planning staff? No closing remarks? Closing remarks by persons granted party status? Do you have anything additional to say? No? Okay. Closing remarks by applicant? Okay.
You could
Please
come
come.
to the podium.
Does this work? Do I have to turn it on?
It should work.
Supposed to be. I've got buttons.
Oh, okay. So this is the proposed elevation with coloring. So you can see the ladder there on the left side. I'm not sure if it can be, painted per the background. That would be fine with us. I guess alternatively, we could move it to the south elevation, but that would be our preferred location right there.
Okay. And for the record, you are willing to paint the ladder if that is allowed by code, correct?
Yeah, if
Okay.
there's no conflicts at all, we could paint it, I suppose.
And is there any landscape anticipated that would help shield or mask this from the street?
I don't believe so, and I don't think landscaping at this point would be an option. Because it's very tall ladder, and we're not going to be able to block the majority of it anyways.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. This is the closing of the public hearing, discussion, and vote by the board. Any comments or a motion?
Applicant agrees to paint the ladder to match the building.
I can't hear you.
The applicant agreed to paint the ladder to match the building, so I don't know if we have to include that or.
We could include that in a motion. I can't make a motion, but I think that would make sense. I would only stipulate that it would have to be, unless it had to be allowed by code, so it would have to be allowed by code.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any further discussion or motions from the body?
Do we have any further discussion or motion?
I move to approve item number 1, case FLD 2017-06009, at 3009 Gulf to Bay Boulevard. Based on the evidence and testimony presented in the application, the staff report, and at today's hearing, the hereby followings of fact based on said evidence, along with the condition of approval that the, if applicable by code, that the applicant will paint the ladder to match the color of the building as much as possible.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the director's items.
All right. Good afternoon. Richard Hartman, Transportation Planner for the City of Clearwater. Nice to meet all of you. Here to give you an update on the City Complete Streets Implementation Plan that's been going on now. We're wrapping up. It's been going on for, about just a little over a year. And just to do a quick update, we're going to the City Council at the June 20th regular meeting, June 17th workshop. So we wanted to present this to you. And we're still working on the finalized plan. Departments have reviewed it, and it's being revised. And then we're going to have one more final review before we proceed to council. So that's why I'm providing you with just an update this time. Complete streets, what are they? Safer streets for people of all ages and abilities. This is something the City Council has recently adopted a Drew Street Complete Streets Plan, Complete Drew Street it was called, and we'll move forward and try to create a plan for citywide to create safer streets, improve mobility and accessibility to destinations. So this helps not only people of all abilities, people with disabilities, vulnerable populations that may not own a car, but also people who drive every day, because it makes the streets safer and more user-friendly for all modes of transportation. Benefits, health and safety. Of course, unfortunately, Florida has a ongoing record of bicycle pedestrian crashes that's not enviable. And so we improve the safety, but that also improves health by getting people out of their cars, more apt to walk, bike, use transit to get to their destinations. The economic strength, there's a lot of studies showing that economic development is tied closely with walkable downtowns, and we've got some great new plans for downtown redevelopment in the North Marina District that'll take advantage of complete streets, and it's part of the street process that is integrated with the land use. So, and I mentioned some equitable issues. It also helps protect the environment, air pollution, water pollution, less stormwater flow and things of that sort. So, but the one thing to always keep in mind is that complete streets is a misnomer in a way. Not every single street is the same. You don't take one prototype and say every street has to do this. So that's what we're going to be showing you here in just a couple of minutes, how different streets will be analyzed independently. This is the old way of doing things. This was what's called auto-centric review. It was looking curb to curb, travel lanes, how fast can cars get from point A to point B. Speed was seen as a positive, but it doesn't equate to travel time. It doesn't mean that going faster you're going to get from point A to point B better. But then bicycles and pedestrians and how most people get around in short distances, they were ignored in this analysis. So now we've added land use. And streets are really, it's almost building facade. It's the entire right-of-way, and you have to integrate into what the land uses are along the side of the street. So it's not just travel lanes, it's sidewalks, furniture zones, and you'll see there are different aspects of the street that it's almost like Legos. You move a little here, you improve this mode, you move that, you take advantage of your entire right-of-way to make it serve and support the businesses and the land uses alongside of it. So this is called the Transect. This is something that Smart Growth America has developed quite some time ago, and Andres Duani and it shows how there are different aspects to different land uses in your city. And that is something that we've looked at in the implementation plan of different types of parcels, different portions of the city have different modes and have different needs as far as the transportation network. So here's an example of one of the things we've done. We've defined different areas of the city by the land use context and by the roads and the users. So this is an example of the urban edge map. This will take a context and it'll say, okay, what is the land use here? What is the destinations like here? What are the roads, the right-of-ways? And we try to adapt those to serve this area. And we do that by presenting a matrix. And these are their goals we strive for, but we want to also have these as minimums. We don't want to sit there and say, well, we can't really do a 6-foot sidewalk here without making the lane go from 11 feet to 10 feet. So we're just not going to do it. We're trying to incorporate this into the department review process for transportation projects. And that means utilities, there are opportunities, utilities, stormwater, even resurfacing projects, where complete streets is basically an additional component of the analysis. It is something like we look at, are people using this to walk to schools? Are they walking to churches? Or is it a thoroughfare where people are just trying to get through quickly from, say, US 19 to the beach on State Road 60? But the one thing is that even though you're balancing different modes, you always account for every mode as much as possible. So you don't say, all right, this is a heavily trafficked road, and we're just going to ignore bicyclists or ignore people who have to walk or walk to transit. No, you sit there and you balance the system and you create a hierarchy of modes, and then you make your designs meet those needs. And so that's what the matrix is for. We have the pedestrian realm, which is a sidewalk, and then what they call the furniture zone, so from the curb to the private property line, that part of the right-of-way. Then you have the curb and buffer, which is not just the curb, but also an area where you might have a bicycle cycle track, a separated bicycle facility. And you have the traveled way. And that is the traveled way, as you'll see in a second, and that is the medians and the lanes that the automobiles and the buses and the freight and trucks travel on. And these are, what we've done is we've divided the types of roads into 4 different types, and that way we have an idea. We don't say, all right, you're a local collector and this is what's going to happen on every local collector, but it gives us a framework, and we'll identify in the future how all the streets, every street in the city, how do they fall into these categories to give us an idea before we get to a project of what we can possibly do there. Here's the breakdown. Pedestrian realm, you can see on the far right and left. You can see the buffer way is basically where just outside the curb and the bike lane, and then the travel way and the medians, and that's what I was talking about. But this gives you an idea that it's not just the travel way, it's the entire right-of-way. And it's got to be interacting with the land uses and the building facades. And you know, if you have a building that's commercial and set back 100 feet, you're going to have a different approach to those needs than you do when you have retail that's right up against the sidewalk. Crash map. Okay, I put this under health and safety, of course. But you can see by the hot spots, the red spots, that not only are corridors important, but something equally important are we call them crossings. Intersections, mid-block crossings. You know, there are a lot of intersections that aren't marked, but you can see that on some of our major roads where the red spots are, that those are major intersections along State Roads 60, Belcher, US 19. And this is the 5-year crash map for bicycle and pedestrian and car crashes. So you can see there needs to be a focus on intersections and crossings. Here are some examples of what Complete Streets do. Complete Streets is basically, it's not only using the matrix, But then you have to identify what are your problems, where can you improve, what's called countermeasures. And these are just some simple countermeasures that we will be looking at as we have projects and the opportunity to implement these types of things. So here you see what's called a goat path on the left, the before. And it's great once you learn these terms because you see them all the time on your own. So it's great. Then you see that there is a new curb cut with what's called a truncated dome for people who are visually impaired. They've got a button located there, and so the sidewalk ties in to the signal where the pedestrian presses the button to implement the enhanced signal. Here's another one where you've got a separated median. One of the big crash types here in this city is on the left, where you have a 4-lane undivided road, somebody trying to make a left turn. It's extremely difficult. Somebody trying to cross the street, no refuge, no place in the middle. So this not only helps keep cars separated and allows people to cross, it also slows traffic down. Something as simple as, well, it's not simple. Actually, the picture makes it seem simple, but when you want to just change the angle of your intersection, it's all about human behavior and the frailty of the human being. Because here you have to look back at an angle that is near impossible to see oncoming traffic. All you're trying to do is just straighten it out and make it easier to make your right turn or left turn. And there's things like that. Geometric design is very important. And if we have the opportunity, we should take advantage of it. Here are some other examples. We also are looking at doing pilot projects, quick builds, and pilots where you can go in and you can paint something low cost. You can put in some temporary bollards, or here are the cones, and you're extending the curb out. You're sharpening the angle that slows traffic down. It protects cars that are parked. There's a lot that you can do on a demonstration basis before you spend the money to implement something that is more costly and permanent. Gives us a chance to kick the tires and see if it's going to work, or how well it works, or if we can adjust it, make it better. You can see the middle photo, cycle track. Protected, it's got the curb stops, intermittent flexi posts, so it provides a much higher level of protection for people on bicycles. The other thing, guiding principles. We came up with guiding principles. What are we trying to accomplish here? These are the things that we want to accomplish, and they're tied in the implementation plan to a series of performance measures, so we'll understand what the outcomes are. Are we achieving what we want? And if not, well, let's adjust, let's do something else, or let's, go back to the drawing board if it's not doing anything like what we want. But you have to have something that you're going to measure to tell you if you're successful. Key recommendations. Strong recommendation. The number one recommendation is an interdepartmental process. Utilities, stormwater, traffic operations, other engineering departments, parking, planning, we all need to be involved together so that we're coming up with these opportunities. Because the expense is not great. It's a small fraction to other infrastructure projects if you do it in conjunction with those projects. These typically are not standalone projects where we're going to come asking for a budget and funding just to do a complete streets projects. They're incremental, and that's how we'll make the city better, taking advantage of opportunities whenever they arise. We're going to develop a policy in the next few months. We're going to to establish an advisory committee. We had an informal one that was advising on the implementation plan, but we'd like to have something more formalized with bylaws and regular meetings to help get public input, because that was key. I mean, we had a lot of public input. We got over 900 people participated in our MetroQuest survey and such, so it was really enlightening. Support complete streets in the comprehensive plan in the CDC, an education program. A lot of people don't know what complete streets are. It's not just that they don't know what complete streets are. They we'll have a better understanding of what we're trying to do when we say, oh, we want to move the intersection and create two bi-directional curb cuts, and we'll show them. And you can talk all you want, but until you see it graphically, you really don't understand. But that's a great safety improvement. We're going to integrate the bicycle and pedestrian master plan update that we're going to be going through over the next 12, 14 months. And we're going to then apply the guiding principles, the performance measures, and see what happens, after we have a few projects. So I can't say a timeline on it. But once we have projects, we'll go back. We'll see speed studies, pedestrian counts, bicycle counts, things like this that tell us what's going on. And most of all, we'll look at the crash rates. So that's what I brought to you today for the update on this. Any questions?
I did notice on your matrix you had some street sizes from 10 to 11 feet. Is that smaller than we have on many streets now? And is that the intent of that to allow space for bicycle lanes and other elements?
And that's a great point, because it is smaller than a lot of streets. Your typical travel lanes and throughout the state were 12 feet, and you can take a lane and capture an extra foot, 2 feet. 10 feet is not uncommon. This is being done throughout the state. And so one of the things, let me go back to the matrix. One of the things is, though, you look at that and you're saying, okay, do we want a 10-foot street here? And that's when you start analyzing the modes. Is this a truck route, freight truck, and everything? So you want to not cut off somebody else's livelihood, so to speak, in order to create a 5-foot bike lane or what have you. But the one thing about reducing the lane width is not only do you get extra room to improve the other modes, but you also slow traffic down. And it's typical if you're, unfortunately, but a pedestrian hit by a car doing 40 miles an hour has less than 20% chance of survival. If they're hit by a car doing 20 miles an hour, they have over a 90% chance of survival. So speed has a big role in that, but it also has a big role in car-on-car vehicle crashes as well. And so when we can, we'll reduce the lanes depending on what the need of that roadway is.
Okay. And I see you have target speeds on there as well. So
yes.
For instance, a thoroughfare, would that be US 19? So is that a target speed for US 19?
Well, it would be a target speed on US 19 in US 19 is not in the urban edge. It's in there'll be another matrix for the suburban area.
Okay.
And US 19 is a major arterial. So it will not be, we're not promoting any kind of what they call active transportation modes along US 19. We put it down on the frontage. We also try to find parallel routes, and that'll be part of the implementation plan. We look at this as a transportation network. So if you're doing something here that might constrain walking and not being able to say a Drew, we'll be looking at Cleveland. Where can we do a bicycle boulevard or a more pedestrian-friendly parallel road? Because the key is not just, that's what I'm saying, it's not each road has to create the same template, but you look at your network, because the key for this is people getting from where they need to go. That's why I use the term accessibility in a different manner.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any contemplation or integration or further integration of public transit components in the Complete Streets plan?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we're looking at where you can have bus pullouts. You can have, sometimes you'll be looking, if it's a heavily used transit corridor, then you want to provide that kind of access. Sometimes you can have, they have bike boxes, but they also have bus boxes where you get ahead of the traffic, or you are able to have the light timed in such a way where it leads out the traffic and doesn't have that problem of delay pulling in. So, we have other regional plans where there is a State Road 60 study that is bringing from West Shore area in Tampa, and they're looking at how can they improve the transit system from Tampa all the way out to the beach, at least downtown, where we may soon learn more about an intermodal center for PSTA. So we're looking at all modes, and transit, of course, is a key, especially because there's so many. We have a large percentage of our population that the household doesn't, there's no vehicle ownership. So transit and friends are their primary way of mobility.
I've noticed many cities are also including green street design as part of their complete streets design, where you incorporate stormwater, planters inside the right-of-way, and these become attractive elements as well, but they also treat stormwater. Tarpon Springs has done that. Downtown Tampa has done that in a number of locations. Are we looking at that as well as part of our complete streets?
Well, stuff like that's low-impact development, and then you try to use your natural resources to improve not only you're putting in your landscaping, but to reduce water costs and things like that, capture stormwater and drainage. Those are things that would probably, they're part of complete streets in some, but at this point, we're moving forward with just trying to get the network identified and put the process in place. And then we'll be able to go forward working with stormwater and utilities on those types of improvements to find out. Gulf Boulevard just, they did something like that about 12 years ago, but because of high water table and things like that, it didn't work. It didn't drain. So you have to be careful on things like that, but those are great ideas, especially for medians and things like that, as long as it's expensive, so that's another issue. But I understand, it's got a lot of bonuses to it, and so we'll look at that, but we need to get this whole process in place before we start knocking on that door.
Sure. Any more questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good job.
Appreciate it.
This board is adjourned at 1:47.